Now here's an interesting article from csglobe.com. Someone posted this on my website. I hadn't actually heard of this yet. This was a few days ago, actually. Revenge of the Vikings. Iceland will create its own money. Now, you remember Iceland, the only country that did anything about its corrupt bankers. Threw them in jail. They were the first country to recover after the 2008 crisis, worldwide economic crisis that you all are very familiar with. They were the fastest to recover, the fastest to pay off the not the World Bank, IMF loan they got, and recovered. And again, made the criminal bankers pay. Now they're talking about creating their own money and taking over the issuance of that money and setting the price of that money. I'm wondering, as I read this, are they going to do what Abraham Lincoln actually did, though, which is create money without creating bonds that have the interest on them. Therefore, you're borrowing the money into existence. You cannot borrow money into existence. You just must be able to create the money, use the money. If that was the case, there would be no unemployment today except for those people who are actually disabled. They'd be the only people in America collecting any kind of money and not working. Disabled. Because if you had the country printing its own money, that means they can print it for anything they need it for. There's no such debt ceiling and debt limit and we owe bond, the money and the interest on the... None of that would matter. I've said this so many times. But that's not the case, because everybody who tried that, every president, wound up dead. The Vikings' revenge. Iceland is taking the money back from the clutches of the private fractional reserve lending cartel. It's happened before in history and with great success, but it also prompted a violent backlash from the elites. Back in 1914, the Bradbury Pound was introduced by the UK government as an emergency measure to bolster a failing economy. It was a huge success. The banking elite were unhappy, however, and panicked before managing to wrestle control of the money supply afterwards. President John F. Kennedy also introduced a similar greenback in 1961, and again the banking elite were very unhappy about being pushed out and losing control of the issuance of money as debt. So JFK did not survive past 1963. Then there was someone more recently, you might recognize this name, Muammar al-Gaddafi in Libya, who in 2009 announced a new gold-backed dinar issued by Libya's state-owned public central bank, and with further plans negotiating with the other African nations for the creation of an all-African currency to compete with the euro and the dollar. Gaddafi, as you know, did not live past 2011. Who knew that the revolution would start with those radical Icelanders? One Frosty Sigurjonsson, a lawmaker from the ruling party, Progress Party, issued a report that suggests taking the power to create money away from commercial banks and hand it to the central bank and ultimately Parliament, or like in our case, that would be Congress. Can't see commercial banks in the Western world being too happy about this. They must be contemplating wiping the island nation off the map. If accepted in the Iceland Parliament, the plan would change the game in a very radical way. It would be successful too, because there is no bigger scourge on our economies than commercial banks creating money and then securitizing and selling off the loans they just created the money or credit with. Everyone, with the possible exception of Paul Krugman, understands why this is a very sound idea. And as Agence France Presse reports, Iceland's government is considering a revolutionary monetary proposal, removing the power of commercial banks to create money and handing it to the central bank. Of course, the key has to be publicly owned and run central bank, not privately owned like Federal Reserve, Jewish head, former Jewish head, former Jewish head, former Jewish head. Every head of this bank has been Jewish. I'm sure it's a coincidence. You cannot borrow the money. You must just print the money and use it. As I've said before, everybody would have a job. If for some reason the economy starts faltering again, all government agencies, if you add every single government agency, I'm talking local, state, federal, all of that, and say every department that there is that we have on record, hire a couple more people. Now naturally you say, well, some of them may have thousands or hundreds of employees. Adding 2 is nothing. For those guys, once you add 10 or 20 new positions, I'm sure you... Driver's license. Raise your hand if you're tired of waiting in the driver's license line for 4 days. Oh, no problem. We just hired 20 more new people. Why? Because it didn't cost us anything. We printed the money and we used it. And then as the economy rebounds, those people can make that decision. Do I like working here? Or would I like to go do something else? Maybe I want a higher paying job or better, whatever. This was temporary. I needed a job. We were in a little downfall in our economy. Now things are picking back up. There's job offerings from what I used to work as. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to put my resume out and not be concerned that if I lose my job here, because I'm not really going to lose the job here unless I just suck and have to fire me, which I'm not going to do because I need money, right? So I'll stay here, put my resume out until I get a hit. When I get a hit, take the job. Yeah, maybe it'll take 6 months. Maybe it'll take a year. Maybe it'll only take a month. But it doesn't matter because you got a job and you will maintain that job until you move on. And again, as the economy improves, people will be leaving those government positions, working out in the private sector. Now, I could see a possible issue with this. I will mention that. And that is government mindset. We have unlimited money. And we love money ourselves, personally. So I want to give some of these privately owned corporations that are buddies of mine, military industrial complex, pharmaceutical industrial complex, banking industrial complex, send some money their way, pass some bills through Congress. They'll take that money, bribe us off to pass some legislation that benefits them, and they'll just get more money out of the deal. But then we're going to get our own money in our back pocket, so everybody's happy. Therefore, the amount of fraud and corruption that you see now would go up significantly. Because now you have a free money printing machine. So when you hear about, these multi-billion-dollar F-22 fighter plane, they would become 10, 20, 30 billion-dollar fighter planes each. Because money all of a sudden is no object. So that's kind of an argument. Not even kind of. That's the argument for sound money. And again, gold-backed or gold and silver itself is sound money because you can't create it whenever you need it. But then you have the other problem. The economy suffering, people are out of job, right? People are not working. The more people who don't work, the more it puts stress on the people who are working, who have to come up with more money. We're going to raise taxes. We're going to do all this stuff. So ultimately, when you weigh them, honestly, the best solution still is printing your own money with no interest attached. Because then at least, even with the fraud and corruption taking place, at least people aren't getting foreclosed on and kicked out of their houses and, that sort of stuff. Iceland's government is considering a revolutionary monetary proposal, removing the power of commercial banks to create money and handing it to the central bank. The proposal, which would be a turnaround in the history of modern finance, was part of a report written by a lawmaker from the ruling centrist Progress Party, that was that Frosty dude, entitled A Better Monetary System for Iceland. The report, commissioned by the Premier, is aimed at putting an end to a monetary system in place through a slew of financial crises, including the latest one in 2008. According to a study by 4 central bankers, the country has had over 20 instances of financial crises of different types since 1875, with 6 serious, multiple financial crises or crisis episodes occurring every 15 years on average. Frosty, not the snowman, said the problem each time arose from ballooning credit during a strong economic cycle. He argued the central bank was unable to contain the credit boom, allowing inflation to rise and sparking exaggerated risk-taking and speculation, the threat of bank collapse, and costly state interventions. In Iceland, as in other modern market economies, the central bank controls the creation of banknotes and coins, but not the creation of all money, which occurs as soon as a commercial bank offers a line of credit. The central bank can only try to influence the money supply with its monetary policy tools. Under the so-called sovereign money proposal, the country's central bank would become the only creator of money. Banks would continue to manage accounts and payments and would serve as intermediaries between savers and lenders. Frosty, a businessman and economist, and a snowman? I had to throw that in. Was one of the masterminds behind Iceland's household debt relief program launched in May 2014 and aimed at helping the many Icelanders whose finances were strangled by inflation-indexed mortgages signed before the 2008 crisis. So, this guy appears to have a very good head on his shoulders, wants to fix the problems, knows what it's taking, says what it takes, and provides the examples. Every 15 years approximately, we have a very bad financial crisis in our country. And I'm here to tell you, if you don't already know, you can take what he just said about these financial crises that come and go, and they come and go, and it's just a cycle. They happen everywhere else on the planet. Why? Because we all practice the same fractional reserve lending system. We have the privately owned central banks issuing money to the buddy banker friends, their banks, and then they, in turn, lend it out to us at interest, of course, while they enjoy near zero interest to the central bank, many times taking that big, huge sum of money they just got from the central bank and then parking it back at the central bank to earn more interest. Imagine being given a few $1 billion in your name and saying do whatever the hell you want with it, and you say, well, I want to go to the absolute safest place. Well, that would be parking it back with us. The one who just gave it to me? Yeah, here you go. You got it, or created out of nothing at near zero interest rate to me, and I'm going to park it in your bank, central bank, for 1%, whatever it is. 1%, that's all you get. 1% out of billions and billions and billions of dollars. That's a nice check every month. Again, the other issue is banks just lending money into existence. And there's always interest attached. So this man sees how to solve the problem. The question is, will they pull it off? Will the Icelanders do what's right once again and pull this off? And if they do, how's it going to work? Because here's the other thing. Other countries have currencies, and how do you weigh what your country's worth versus the other currency? Now, the way we do it in America, we run all the electronic markets anyway, so we just tell everybody, here's what our dollar's worth today, and here's what your crappy currency's worth today. We're pretty much that simple. And if we want to cause a worldwide economic collapse, we just keep showing them that everyone else's currency is falling badly, while the American currency is staying strong. Yet, we're the most indebted nation on the face of the earth. How is that even possible? I don't know. So, this system needs to change. Iceland has shown great strength in changing things. Overthrowing the rotten bankers. They just got rid of their prime minister. I guess his name was in the old Panama Papers with some offshore accounts. Oh, he didn't disclose. Oh, I'll go ahead and resign. Of course, it remains to be seen who's going to be in power now. Because whoever it is, if this parliament passes this, says, yeah, we want this in a law, and then the prime minister or whatever says, well, you know, I think I'm going to veto that, then you know another club member has stepped into his place. Remains to be seen, but man, oh man, the more I see Iceland, the more I actually have a little bit of faith that this will ultimately go the right way. But these bankers have sick control, and they've had it forever. And they have it now more than ever. How are you going to get Congress, in our case, to pass a law like this when their handouts, bribes, campaign contributions come directly from that system that's in place now? And if they want to pass that law, the bankers are going to say, we're not giving you any more money. No more campaign contributions to you if you pass this law. And as a matter of fact, I've given you, $500,000 personally in campaign contributions. So we're not asking you or saying if you pass this law. We're telling you as a favor to us for all this money we've given you over the years, do not pass this law. Well, okay. That's true. I do owe them some serious favors. They've given me a lot of money. That's politics in America. But I hope everyone's paying attention to Iceland because it appears they have it right. Take care.